Hello everyone, welcome to back my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Punisher's recent words to Matt Murdock ring true in Daredevil. Born Again Episode 7, where Frank Castle's direct approach to crime fighting seems more necessary than ever in the MCU. Daredevil. Born Again Episode 7 features an unexpected death. Heather Glenn kills Muse in self-defense, and Wilson Fisk's police task force takes the credit for it. Despite his efforts, Daredevil fails to stop Muse using his traditionally non-lethal method, and Heather barely makes it out alive. Mayor Fisk's war against vigilantism officially begins in Daredevil. Born Again Episode 7. Muse's attack on Heather Glenn provides Fisk with the perfect excuse to portray masked individuals as dangerous threats to the city, as well as to portray his private task force as the solution. Now, vigilantes like Daredevil, the Punisher, and even Spider-Man might be lumped together with criminals like Muse. In Daredevil. Born Again Episode 6, Matt Murdock finds Muse's lair just in time to save Angela del Toro as Muse drains her blood. Daredevil gains the upper hand after a brief fight and manages to strangle Muse with his billy club, but he stops before the move becomes lethal. When Daredevil turns around after removing the pump out of Angela's body, Muse is already gone. Only one episode later, Muse almost kills Heather Glenn in her own office. Fortunately, Daredevil stalls Muse, and Heather shoots the villain dead before Wilson Fisk's task force arrives. Although Detective Angie Kim makes quick progress in discovering Muse's real identity, her investigation isn't quick enough to stop Muse before he can target his next victim. In short, Heather Glenn is miraculously alive by the end of Daredevil. Born Again Episode 7. When Matt Murdock and Frank Castle reunite in Daredevil. Born Again Episode 4, the Punisher chastises Daredevil for believing in the judicial system and letting Bullseye breathe the same air that Matt breathes. Back when the Punisher and Daredevil first met in Daredevil Season 2, the two heroes had a heated discussion about killing. Daredevil said another Punisher-like figure could decide to kill innocents and Frank himself at any time, and the Punisher remarked that the criminals Daredevil apprehends will inevitably regain their freedom. Frank Castle said, years after their first encounter, the Punisher's words are proven true in Daredevil. Born Again. Daredevil chose not to kill Muse when the villain almost murdered Angela del Toro, and Muse came back right afterward to kill Heather Glenn. Had Daredevil followed in the Punisher's footsteps in Daredevil Season 3's ending, he could have killed Bullseye before Benjamin Poindexter had the chance to kill Foggy Nelson. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has a reputation for delivering thrilling stories packed with action, emotion, and moral complexity, particularly when it comes to its darker characters like Daredevil and the Punisher. With the recent release of Daredevil. Born Again, fans are treated to a gripping season that not only reintroduces the beloved hero Matt Murdock, but also provides a fresh examination of the themes associated with vigilant justice. At the center of this exploration stands the Punisher, also known as Frank Castle, whose morally ambiguous philosophy has often put him at odds with conventional heroes. As the narrative unfolds, it becomes increasingly evident. Daredevil. Born Again has unintentionally validated the Punisher's ideological stance, emphasizing that in a world rife with corruption and violence, sometimes the brutal measures taken in the name of justice may hold an uncomfortable yet compelling logic. The dichotomy of Daredevil and the Punisher. To better understand the thematic undercurrents in Daredevil. Born Again. We must first delve into the distinctions between Daredevil and the Punisher. Matt Murdock, also known as Daredevil, embodies the principles of empathy and justice. He operates under a moral code that prioritizes redemption and the legal system, believing that even the worst offenders have the potential for reform. Conversely, Frank Castle stands as a stark contrast, a hardened vigilant who believes in executing justice through lethal force. For him, the law is often ineffective and corrupted, leading him to take the law into his own hands. This dichotomy sets the stage for an evolving narrative that examines the efficacy of each character's philosophy amidst the chaos of their shared universe. What has emerged, especially within the context of Daredevil, Born Again, is how the accelerated brutality in Hell's Kitchen makes Matt's adherence to a non-lethal approach increasingly untenable. The rise of moral complexity. In Season 1 of Daredevil, Matt Murdock battles a range of criminal enterprises while struggling to define the limits of his moral compass. His encounters with the Punisher, first introduced in the Netflix series, serve as a powerful embodiment of ideological conflict. Where Frank pushes for lethal justice, Matt grapples with the weight of life and death, attempting to save souls rather than extinguish them. However, as the landscape of crime evolves with more insidious threats, Matt's resolve begins to be tested. In Daredevil, Born Again, the stakes have never been higher. The new season introduces a variety of formidable antagonists who embody the corruption and immense suffering inflicted upon the citizens of Hell's Kitchen. Characters like Wilson Fisk, Kingpin return, wielding not just physical power, but psychological manipulation that leaves destruction in their wake. As these threats escalate, Matt finds himself in conflict. His methods feel impotent against an adversary willing to kill, manipulate, and terrorize. This rising chaos corroborates Frank Castle's stance. Every episode showcases the brutal realities of the streets, forcing viewers to reconsider Daredevil's moral code. When bad actors like Fisk exploit the system for their gain, can Matt truly achieve justice without pragmatic force? The consequences of non-action. Daredevil's unwillingness to deadly force is not without its consequences. With villainy at large, the collateral damage accumulates, impacting innocent lives and fostering hopelessness in the very community Matt is trying to protect. In one of the episodes, we witness a harrowing moment where a murder occurs because of Matt's hesitance to act decisively. If he'd been more inclined to utilize lethal methods, perhaps he could have saved a life. This narrative choice evokes stark reminders of moments from the Punisher's story, events that fundamentally shaped Frank Castle's worldview. In his eyes, every moment of hesitation translates into a life lost, reinforcing his belief that moral ambiguity must be embraced to confront evil directly. The question hangs heavy over Daredevil. Can he continue to fight crime with just the law and his convictions, or has the time come for a change in approach? In this sense, Daredevil, Born Again, intriguingly echoes the Punisher's lament that sometimes choices forged in righteousness yield devastating consequences when faced with insurmountable evil. The series invites viewers to ponder the fragility of justice when compassion conflicts with the harsh realities of survival, exploring themes of sympathy and empathy. Another compelling aspect of the current season lies in how it humanizes its characters, particularly Frank Castle. While he has always been portrayed through the lens of vengeance, Daredevil, Born Again, offers nuanced glimpses into Frank's psyche, revealing the tragedy of his loss and the pain that drives his violent tendencies. There's an integral scene in the series where Frank converses with Matt, laying bare his understanding of justice, loss, and sacrifice. As Frank delineates his beliefs about the limits of mercy, we see empathy and pain reflected in both men. While Matt remains resolute in his efforts to save lives, Frank asks how many lives he can afford to lose in his pursuit of justice. This pivotal exchange transforms the audience's perception of Frank Castle. Through his pain, we understand the emotional burden behind his extreme measures. This element of duality comes to define the season. While Daredevil holds to his morals in a bid to save others, The series intelligently compels us to empathize with Frank's philosophy, even if we don't agree with his methods. The Punisher's perspective begins to make sense as he responds to a world where empathy often feels futile against overwhelming darkness. The question of redemption. As the series develops, it significantly examines themes of redemption, something central to both characters but manifested differently. For Matt, redemption comes through the path of forgiveness, striving to redeem his opponents as much as himself. Conversely, Frank's path is one of absolution achieved through retribution. He believes that avenging the wrongs allows the possibility for renewal, albeit in his own harsh way. This thematic exploration pushes Daredevil to confront the practicality of compassion. Is it viable to extend mercy to those who not only exploit weakness, but also thrive on destruction? His internal struggle reveals the series' intent to question whether true redemption can exist in a world rife with evildoers who manipulate love and grief for personal gain. The intersection of justice and vigilantism. One of the most provocative aspects of Daredevil, Born Again, is its exploration of the blurred lines between justice and vigilantism. As Matt faces powerful criminal syndicates who skillfully evade the legal system, his characterization begins to reflect the extremist views represented by Frank. The show cleverly builds tension, illustrating the cyclical nature of violence that results from being too soft in an unforgiving realm. With each passing episode, Matt's struggle with the challenges posed by villains feels increasingly futile, while the methodical violence of the Punisher appears increasingly justified. The discourse on morality that unfolds acts as a thought-provoking commentary on societal issues. When law enforcement fails to protect the innocent, does vigilantism become morally responsible? A pivotal climax. In the climax of Season 1, tensions reach a fever pitch where Matt, faced with a critical situation, must decide between sticking to his moral code or adopting a more ruthless methodology akin to Frank's. This moment parallels Frank's continual battle against what he perceives as relentless evil, embodying the core conflict that has long existed between these two characters. As the episode unfolds, viewers are left questioning whether Daredevil can reconcile his beliefs, or if he will, at least temporarily, embrace the brutal efficiency embodied by the Punisher. This tension drives the narrative forward, culminating in a powerful cliffhanger that leaves audiences grappling with the implications of vigilantism versus strict adherence to law and order. The impact of morality on character growth. The exploration of morality in Daredevil, Born Again, is not just a narrative device. It plays a critical role in the character's personal growth. Matt's internal conflict forces him to confront the limits of his ideals, illustrating how the superhero motive often navigates complex societal issues. The moral dilemmas presented in this season shed light on broader themes, allowing fans to ponder the implications of justice versus revenge on a grand scale. Ultimately, the series underscores the notion that heroes, much like humans, are not infallible. They are flawed beings navigating a world fraught with personal pain and complex questions of morality. This is perhaps the most profound impact of Daredevil. Born Again, it captures the complicated nature of virtue, emphasizing that sometimes traditional paths to justice may not always suffice when faced with insatiable evil. Conclusion: embracing complexity. As Daredevil, Born Again progresses, viewers are left with an evolving perspective on justice, morality, and what it truly means to be a hero. The series adeptly parallels Frank Castle's philosophy against Matt Murdock's ideals, crafting an engrossing narrative that challenges our understanding of right and wrong. While Daredevil has always stood for justice through empathy, Born Again builds upon the tension between its moralistic stand and the desperate realities that accompany unchecked evil. In this dialogue, Frank Castle is vindicated, not because his methods are righteous, but because his perspective sheds light on the fallibility inherent in justice. Both characters navigate intricacies shaped by pain and loss, exhibiting the depth that audiences crave in superhero narratives. Through this lens, Daredevil, Born Again, has showcased how complex storytelling breathes life into the Marvel Universe, proving that the fight for justice is not merely black and white, but a war steeped in gray, where the boundaries of morality become increasingly fluid. Ultimately, the echoing sentiment stands firm. The Punisher was right, not merely in his convictions, but in his understanding that true heroism can often come wrapped in the context of moral ambiguity. As the season unfolds, audiences will be left to ponder whether Daredevil can truly embrace the complexity of his legacy, or if he will forever remain in conflict with the rigid virtues he holds dear. The drama, rich in narrative depth, serves both as a thrilling exploration of character and a contemplative examination of what justice truly entails.